Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the BCA Restart Clinic on Good Practices on Project Restart Applications. My name is Hui Wen from BCA. As construction activities gradually resume, we hope that this clinic provides good understanding on Project Restart application, the self-help tool, the do's and don'ts, so as to facilitate smoother and quicker approval. Before we start, please note that as participants, you're on mute setting. Should you have any questions about the discussion topics, you may do so by clicking the Q&A button in the screen to type in your queries. When we get to the Q&A session at the end of this webinar, we will also be activating the raise hand function to take live questions from the audience. Should you wish to ask a question verbally at that time, do click the raise hand icon. Do also note that when the session ends, you will be directed to access an evaluation form after you have exited the webinar. Once submitted, you will be able to download the speaker's presentation materials at a later date via the website as shown. Today, we are pleased to have Mr. Tan Chi Kiat, Group Director, Business Development BCA, to chair the session. Together with him from BCA, we have Engineer Lang Hian Hao, Director, Bridges and Structural Steel Department, Engineer Ching Keng Gi, Deputy Director, Geotechnical Engineering Department, Mr. Jeremy Tan, Deputy Director, Bidding Plan and Advertisement Licensing Department, Mr. Sebastian Lim, Senior Manager, Strategic Resources Department, and Mr. Abner Wee, Executive Manager, Building Policy Department of BCA. Without ado, let us invite our webinar chairperson to deliver his welcome remarks. Mr. Tan, please.
Dear fellow colleagues from the public sector agencies, very good afternoon. I'm Chi Kiat. I'm the Group Director of Business Development Group in BCA. So welcome to this webinar, or what we call the Restart Clinics. We have been organizing a series of all these webinars and Restart Clinics for different stakeholders of the construction value chain for this construction restart. And today's session is especially so-called catered to our colleagues from the public sector agencies. And I'm very happy to see the huge turnout today. We have close to 600 close to 700 number of participants who have signed into this webinar. It is either you have a lot of interest in the restart, or you do have a lot of questions about the restart that have been unanswered through our FAQs online. So we'll try our best to answer all those queries that you have towards the end of this so-called webinar. But before we go on to today's presentation, I just want to paint the outcome we are trying to achieve with this safe restart. It's just not that we want to add on more work to all of you. In fact, it also add on more work to us, more than ever, in fact. But it is necessary. The measures that we are putting in place are to minimize the risk of new COVID-19 outbreaks among the construction workers as we begin works for our construction projects. So it is not just about the restart, but more of a safe restart. So to do that, all projects must be required to demonstrate their ability to meet the following 3 COVID-safe restart criteria before projects are allowed to restart. COVID-safe workforce, COVID-safe worksite, COVID-safe accommodation. For COVID-safe workforce, what we are looking at, essentially our employers or contractors establishing a system to track the daily health status of workers, to manage the workers' interaction on their rest days, and the regular COVID-19 testing of their workforce. In terms of safe worksite, we are looking at worksites using safe entry, which I'm sure all of us are quite familiar with now, to record all entries and exit. Strict safe management measures to be enforced at the worksite to prevent any outbreaks, which could include segregating workers by teams into different work zones and having staggered so-called breaks throughout the day. And as for safe accommodation and transport, that will include cohorting of workers by projects at their places of residence, providing dedicated transport between work sites and places of accommodation. So since we started this restart application, we have approved a total of close to about 450 numbers of projects for this restart, and out of which about 60% are from the public sector. So all this would not have been possible without the stakeholders working closely with us to get them started. And I think some of you here today also have been involved. And I would like to be on behalf of BCA, thank you and your colleagues for all the help rendered. So as the Chinese saying goes, good beginning is halfway to success. So if you can get your projects going, you're already halfway there. But the other half of the success will really depend on how the safety management measures are being implemented on site. Hence, this is where the importance of audit inspection comes in, or what we term as the COVID safe assurance. Sounds like quite a fair bit to chew, but not to worry. My colleagues later on in their presentation will cover in greater details on all this. So before I pass on to them, I just want to request that if you have any questions, feel free to key them in. In fact, we already have 2 questions there, so keep them coming. I'll try my best later to group them together and answer them during the Q&A session. Alternatively, of course, you may keep your questions and raise your hands by clicking on the raise hand function later on during the Q&A session. So with that, I wish you a fruitful session. Over to you, MC.
Thank you, Mr. Tan. BCA will be sharing on a good practice guide on project restart applications, focusing on the 4 listed key topics and the commonly observed shortcomings and good practices. Dude and Jeremy, please.
All right, thank you, MC. So now I'll be going through my presentation on the guide to restart project application. So the idea of this presentation is to just give GPEs a greater understanding of how this whole application process will go. And on top of that, maybe highlight some of the do's and don'ts that the builders have not complied to, which is hindering the processing procedures, making it, so yeah, on that point, I will focus more later and tell you more about it. All right, so this is the agenda. So generally, I'll go through the whole overview, and then I will give GP colleagues a greater understanding of what is to be expected upon approval and also rejection. And finally, A and I will take over and talk about their portion. So a whole general overview is as such. You can see that there are 4 different categories of projects. So if your project is a construction site, then you have to go into the construction projects or landed property. Then there are other categories like renovation works and construction account works. Today I'll be focusing more on the construction projects. So for the construction projects, right, we have to go through this self-check tool. So this self-check tool allows us to gauge whether the projects are ready for restart. And on top of that, after the self-check tool, then you go on to the application process. This will be done after the self-check tools are positive, and then they will give a link. This link will then lead them to the one-stop shop front where they will make an application. And this application includes the 3 different types of criteria as mentioned by Chiket previously. Yeah, so safe worksite, safe accommodation and transport, and safe workforce. So for more information, you can actually go on to our BCA website. We actually have our colleagues from comms have put out very nice infographics where actually the GPEs or even the builders themselves can go up and educate themselves on the whole process. So first up, I'll just give a general understanding of this self-assessment checklist. So the self-assessment checklist mainly gauges, like what I said, to reiterate again, assess whether the project is ready for the 3 COVID safe restart criteria. And upon submission, you will you will receive a link to make the application to restart. So I'll just give you a general understanding of how this list will look like. So some information regarding the workers' accommodation and transport first up. And also for the safe workforce portion, things like whether workers have the Trace Together app and S3 WorkPass app, whether any of the workers are facing any quarantine orders. These are some of the the criteria that would determine whether this project and its workers are ready for restart. And also for safe worksite, whether they have met the requirements and criteria. I'll go into more detail later for this portion. Okay, so following the self-assessment checklist, then we will actually go into the main application. So what is this main application? Many may be wondering. So this main application to restart construction works and supply works will actually look as such. So it's actually a Form SG. I guess everyone's quite familiar with that. And in this Form SG, there are several declarations at the start, along with 6 additional documents to be uploaded. And these 6 additional documents to be uploaded comprises of the following, which I'll go into detail. So the idea is construction supply and main submission. That's a general employee detail and also the firm detail and the project details. Self-restart declaration. So these are declarations of the 3 COVID safe restart criteria. So this is also we're trying. We're also in the midst of actually trying to simplify this a little. Worksite safety Excel submission, worksite safety plan. So that is to show the whole segregation and the whole layout and how the movement plans would be, along with follow-ups and follow-ups in case of suspected case, that sort of thing. The confirmation email from employers that have updated records with MOM, and lastly, a declaration between the developer and the builder. Okay, so for this Form SG main submission, it's they have to put in things like the submission type. So whether it's GPE, whether it's under a developer for private projects and that sort of thing. And for project value, that will also determine that also be determined in the form. So first up, this is how the Excel sheet will look like, and there are different components that they have to fill in. Thus far, this should be quite straightforward. However, we have been getting several errors where erroneous entries where you see builders fill in, for example, the project reference in a very weird format. We will require the project reference to be of the correct format. This will ensure that the whole processing process is smooth. On top of that, there are also other simple errors that is commonly made. So for example, how the addresses could be split into 3 different cell entries. We require everything to be in one single cell. And lastly, the date format. So under this part, we also require that the applicant includes all subcontractors, specialist firms, part-time firms like QP firms and testing companies in the firm details. For employee details, similar as the project reference number, require it to be in the correct NRIC and FIN format and UEN number. So these are some of the common errors that we actually face. Yeah. Okay, so moving on to the second document that's required, safe restart declaration. So I mean, this is a declaration of the different areas of criteria that's required to be met by the builder. So this is a declaration, yes, no, or NA. So thus far, many applications are good. However, we have some that leaves all this declaration blank. So we want to emphasize that builders do not leave it blank because they may cause the application to be rejected. And for those that are not applicable to the project itself, for example, in this screenshot, you can see that for large projects with more than 3 million. So if your project is not more than 3 million, then you should put NA instead. So these are some of the kind of errors. On top of that, we actually did an analysis on what are some of the common non-compliances. So I'll be sharing in the next slide with you. Yeah. So of the many, we have picked up 4 of them we want to emphasize. So builder, right, have to have a system to log all personnel entering or leaving the site or the premise. in addition to using the Safe NRIC. So I guess a lot of people know that there's Safe NRIC. However, we still require the builders, right, to have their own system, be it an electronic visitor management system or even as simple as a logbook, where you can put at the guardhouse before you enter the site. So this is required because safe entry records are not accessible to the public or the builders. So a separate system is required for your own easy tracking or the builder's easy tracking. On top of that, right, builders are using safe entry NRIC systems, right? This is very important. So many declared as no. However, for this, right, we require every builder to have safe entry NRIC for their construction sites. I like to emphasize safe entry NRIC and not safe entry QR code. This is due to the idea of access code. Yeah. So builder will review. So builder is required to provide all individuals with PACMIL, independent table workers. So this is mandatory and it's part of our builders are supposed to provide sick bay for segregation of suspected cases. We understand that certain sites are small, so get them in the plan and tell us how you should go about doing such. Okay, just a point to note, for this declaration, we're in the midst of simplifying it to integrate it with the Form SG. So temporarily, this is how it look like, but in the near future, we will make it a lot simpler with lesser declarations. Okay, so the third submission that's required, right, from the builder or the applicant would be this Worksite Safety Excel submission sheet. So under this Worksite Safety Excel submission sheet, just an understanding, if you click onto the link, you will get to see different tabs, and under these tabs will be like worksite details, like in this example, safe entry setup, the appointment of SMO and SDO, segregated team plans, so on and so forth. So of this, right, I'd like to highlight some commonly seen issues with the application too. So in the worksite details, we require the builders and the applicant to actually break down the activities into subcategories. So for example, right, under the common mistakes, you can see that in the first one, it says that it just writes ERSS. So we require actually more detail than that because we would like to see how the work is actually split and what the zones are involved with. So I'll talk about zoning later in the worksite plan, but basically we will require you to split into activities, for example, ERSS into like maybe installing sheet piles, then excavating, then putting in the struts, that sort of thing. Okay, on top of that, we require, for smaller sites, right, you can actually just emphasize like, just one activity, but one team per day. However, for larger sites, will require you to actually be more specific with the location of the activity, and then when is the start and end date to ensure that there are no locations that overlap. So like teams that overlap, working on different locations that overlap in a particular zone on the same particular day. So if there are any form where it's possible like teams meeting, then that is a no-no. So what we'll do is actually we will require everyone to have a concise or comprehensive worksite schedule to show us, and on top of that, a zone and demarcation plan to tell us how the planning of the zones will be like and how the movement would be. And on top of that, also this schedule will include it's a 12-week basis, so it's 3 months. So we're required to know how much workers is allocated to work on the different activities in the different subcategories in this worksite detail plan, this worksite details tab. Yeah. Okay. So another point to note is that this segregation. One of the other part will be a segregation team plan, and this segregation team plan and this schedule will have to coincide with the so this segregation plan and the work schedule will have to coincide to ensure that it matches lah. Yeah. Okay. So as I was saying just now, why we will require safe entry NRIC would be this is because of the branch code. So many builders fail to fill up this branch code. So we require everyone to use NRIC, safe entry NRIC and fill up this branch code. And the branch code can be attained in the following manner lah. Okay. Another part that is commonly done incorrectly would be the appointment of SMOs and SDOs. So in our worksite requirements, there are certain ratios that we have to hit. So if you have like less than 10 workers, then 1 SMO, 10 to 50, 1 SMO and 1 SDO, 50 workers, 1 SMO, 1 SDO for every 50 worker, so on and so forth lah. So that is the requirement that is required from all applicants and builders on site lah. So these workers, right, some people will be confused, like how do we classify workers? So workers includes not only the main cons workers, also the sub-cons workers working on site lah. And workers working on in the site office, that sort of thing. Okay, and for this segregated team plan, we like to also ensure that under this part where earlier, the first form that I was explaining, we should ensure that the employee details and the segregated team plans will should match. Because we have to ensure that all workers that was reported earlier is also part of this segregation team plan. Yeah. Okay. Fourth up, we have PowerPoint kind of submission. And this PowerPoint kind of submission, right, will include the following items. First, a zoning and demarcation plan, movement control plan, a plan to indicate where the hand washing and disinfecting points are, and lastly, evacuation plan in case of suspected and follow-up confirmed cases. So first up, the zoning and demarcation plan. So I have an example here, very simple, five different work zones with a common area like a canteen and also site office. So we require every the site, right, to be color coded or any visuals that you deem appropriate to be demarcated. And on top of that, we can also know like what activity is going on at a point in time on a particular day and how many workers is required based on the plan that was submitted in the previous Excel previous document that's required. So we like to everyone to have that inclusion activity and also the team assigned. So on top of that, this zoning must be delineated clearly with 2 meters spacing apart. So to ensure that there is no point where the workers would come in contact too close, not going with the safe distancing measures. Yeah. So on top of that, right, we have demarcation. For the SMO and SDO to do their jobs more efficiently, good visuals of the demarcation could also help a lot. So like, for example, to mark the zones, you can see in this site, they put up signs to tell people that that is the green zone, and also maybe like some barriers or that sort of thing. On top of that, then we like to know who are the workers that are part of the zoning. So you can see in this example, team 1, team 2, team 3, team 4 have different helmets and they tape the helmets with different color tapes. This can help the SMO and SDO much more easily identify the workers within the zone to ensure that the workers within each team do not come in close contact with another team lah. We don't want a situation where we want to ensure that all these teams are kept within a bubble and they are not joining with another bubble lah. So another simple way that you can demarcate would be donning on different colored vests, as shown in this example. Okay, the second part of this PowerPoint submission that's required, right, would be a movement control plan. So the idea is we want to show separate access route for different teams. So for example, in here, you can see that Zone A, Zone B, Zone C are going for lunch at 11:30. And so we require us to we require the plan to show different access routes so that we can know that at any one point in time during their movement, there is as little or almost no contact in close proximity with other zonings. So even within the zones, during the rest, even within the resting area like the canteen, zoning is, and so safe distancing measures need to be kept in place lah. So on top of that, what can be done would be the staggering use of these facilities. So these facilities not only include like canteens, includes like entry and exit points of the site, maybe toilet or rest areas. And teams should be segregated at least 2 meters apart at any point in time if they're using it as a team lah. So a good example that we have here would be this, where you can see the amalgamation of the previous 2 points I said. You can see the different zones, working on different kinds of works. And on top of that, a separate access route that is planned just for that zone itself. So this will ensure safe distancing measures in the access portion and also when entering the zone so that they don't come, workers within each zone don't come in close contact with each other. So this is a very simple plan. So we require the applicant or the builder to have this hand wash or sanitization points to be provided at the different zones and locations to ensure utmost hygiene practices lah. Okay, so the last part of this plan submission that is required would be more towards what happens in case of a suspected case and what do I do in case of a confirmed case. So it'll be good when builders would be able to go through this whole thought process of what happens if a suspected case is identified. And you can see in this example, the SDO will then bring the suspected case to the sick bay, and then what he will do in case if he's confirmed as a case. So in case he's a confirmed case, what is important would be like to disinfect the worksite, to disinfect the workers' accom, to seal off the section, to ensure that this contact doesn't spread lah. Okay, the last two documents are simple documents, just to that's required. So confirmation email that employees have updated records with MOM. So just a screenshot will do. And on top of that, a joint declaration between the developer and builder. So this joint declaration, because this declaration should be submitted by the builder, but it's a joint one. So all the government entities for GB projects would be like this, the developer and the builder, and requires to be signed off lah. Yeah. Okay, so we have a lot of questions asking us, oh, my PowerPoint is too big. How do I upload it? So we have this support of having uploading additional documents. Just upload separately on this and quote the main form application reference number. Yeah. So you can go up to a maximum file size of 7 MB for this option. Okay, so I'm done with the first part for the whole application. Then the next part is, so once my application is approved, what do I do? I guess everyone is quite interested in that. So once it's approved, you have to go to the COVID swab test. Where, you have to go and book the COVID swab test for SC and PR workers. Foreign workers may still perform work at project sites while waiting for arrangements to undergo a COVID-19 swab test. Yeah, this will be arranged. And also, you have to update BCA on a 3-monthly schedule of the works for the project via this additional supporting document. Okay, so as you can see in the previous Excels, right, the schedule only lasts for 3 months, so we require this to be updated for our documentation purpose every 3 months. The PM is to submit a daily report to BCA via the following link, Form SG link, and also to notify BCA in case of any diagnosed COVID-19 cases. Okay, so a lot of people have been wondering, like, oh, halfway through, I want to deploy more people, I got more people ready, or the accommodation type change. So what do we do? Under this, we require them to resubmit revised documents through this link. And under this link, this is actually the same project application link. It's just that under submission type, you will have to put modification for previously approved application. So under this, right, you will then need to resubmit all the documents, assuming like the others are still the same. You have to resubmit everything along with the changed portion for approval again. Yeah. So if it's rejected, the review application would applicants are advised to review the application, taking note of the reasons that are provided for rejection. On top of that, use the self-assessment checklist to assess whether you are ready for restart. Okay. So for easy reference, we have included a summary of links. Okay. So I'd like to emphasize one last point is that all these documents that are submitted should be submitted in the same file format. So for example, if it's an Excel, we require it back in Excel for extraction of data and not to be PDF. Yeah, so that's all for my presentation. Moving on to A&I.
Okay, I think what Dale has actually gone through you is a series of processes. Sorry. Can we go to the next? Can we go to the slide before? Okay, yes. Yeah, so what Dale has actually gone through is actually a series of processes for you to get your approval for the commencement of the restart. And what I'm actually going to talk about now is actually the surveillance, which is essentially a form of maintenance that you need to do when all the approvals are already gotten and you're actually implementing the measures on site. So at this juncture, there are 2 points which I want to highlight, which is the planning, which is the safe management measures that you need to have. So the measures is a series of planning that you need to do, which include the planning such as having a segregation and a zoning plan, a cohorting plan, or your BCP plan, should there be any cases on site, or little penalty systems, or in a deterrent system to make sure that all these practices and measures on site are actually being conformed to. So it is essentially a series of plans that you need to do, or in this case, the builder who actually have to do to make sure all these things are actually done and actually implemented on site. No, to actually ensure that these things are correctly done, we will actually need someone to be some sort of a site management representative, which is what we call a safety management officer. So the safe management officer, essentially it is somebody who knows a site well, and he will actually use the measures in the planning to implement all these measures effectively. So the implementation of this is to ensure the compliances, to ensure that all the issues on site are actually resolved in a timely manner. So there's only two things which I have to highlight here, which is the importance of the planning via the SMM plan, and to have a safety officer, a safe management officer to hold this implementation plan. Yeah. Next slide. Yeah. So the key things to look out for, we have actually, for the audits, we have actually grouped it into 3 groups. One is a safe assess. Essentially, these would have meant that the workers on site, they must be whitelisted, they must be clean, and whoever who actually enters the site, leaves the site, they must be controlled. So with such control, you ensure that all the workers on site are actually approved. And then the second concept here is that it's a safe distancing. I think which is fairly similar to what actually has been done in the community, but of course it has to be implemented on site. So things like the segregation, having prepared meals, and having trees together, these will ensure that the safe distancing measure is actually being done. And the last part is the containment. Containment is if all these things fail, okay, should there be cases where there are workers or personnel who actually fall sick or suspected to have fallen sick on site, what are the plans, what are the things to be done? So this is actually what we call a C+ response plan. Okay, BCA, we have actually conducted our audit findings since the commencement of the construction restart. Okay, this is based on about, as that today is about 200 plus sites that we have audited, large and small sites. And these are actually some of the current statistics that we have and on the non-compliances that we have found. As you can see, the problems, I think, probably will come out in the questions later, and there are a lot of mismatches in the entry records. Which means that the workers which are supposed to be working on site, some of them are not cleared and they are not approved. So these are some of the findings that we have. And the second finding is that the missing safe management measures monitoring plan on site. As I say that this is something which is fairly new to the builders, the construction sites. I think these are the things that have to be paid a bit more attention to. Yeah. So the rest, as you can see, that safe entry not installed, which is basically a hardware, can be done pretty quickly. And safety management officers are on site. This is something that we want to emphasize, that if there are works that which are actually being done on site, the SMO must be on site. And of course, the last one will be the meals are not individually packed. It's not that whether they should be packed or not, but the more important principle here is that the workers should not be sharing food. Yeah. Next. Okay, so these are some pictures that we would like to share of what good practices are. These are the segregated exits, safe entrance markings, clear zone plan, temperature monitoring, safe distance induction, and individually prepared meals. These are actually basically what we would actually experience in our community as well, but this is to be implemented on site. Okay, these are some examples of the bad non-compliances where sometimes we observe that workers are still cooking at site, which is a big no-no. And poor isolation facility for sick workers. This is something which is not desirable, because should anyone fall sick, we want a proper system or control to make sure that the worker or the personnel is actually safely evacuated or actually taken away. And of course, the last thing is a safe entry not used on site. This is the control of workers. So for the non-compliance that we have, what we do for BCA is that we will actually have a series of enforcement actions from stern warnings all the way escalating to eventually, if things are still not improving, it may actually lead to prosecution. So this is what I have.
Thank you, Dale and Jeremy. Right now, we'll move on to the Q&A session. You may raise your question by clicking the raise hand or Q&A button on your screen. Over to you, Mr. Tan.
Okay, thank you, MC. Thank you, Dale and Jeremy, for your presentation. I think a few weeks ago, we probably would not have so much info on what the applications will be like. We probably will not be able to compile the good practices and the common mistakes in the applications. I think today's webinar or clinic itself probably contains, in fact, I'm sure it contains more info than what we have what we have a few weeks ago during our previous webinars. So I do think that this is quite useful, judging from the comments that were given in the Q&A panel itself, as I can see now. But there, of course, there are more queries coming up. We'll try to address them in the sequence of talking about the restart, talking about swabbing, talking about SG Work Pass before we go on to A&I. But before that, I think there's also a query about sharing of slides. I just want to assure everybody that we will be sharing the slides, and you just need to fill out the application form, the feedback form itself, and then the link will be sent to you subsequently. Okay, so on to the first question that we have. I think in terms of the restart, I can see that there's a group of questions that's asking about which process do they go to. Do they submit under the construction projects restart or other works? I think this about mainly the LTA projects or the infrastructure projects in terms of signaling systems, in terms of track works, in terms of system-wide contractors. MPA projects, reclamation works, which process shall they go under? What is the application process like? Should they park their so-called specialist contractors or their system-wide contractors under the main contracting works? I'll pass it to Dr. Chin or Long. Are you all able to answer this?
Yes. Let me start off first. Maybe later on, Dr. Chin can follow up. Principally, if there is a project, basically building works that had approval from BCA and a permit had been obtained, the main contractor will be submitting the restart application. And all the other subcons or related E&M services should be packaged under this main cons submission. So there are situations whereby this E&M contract was called separately and may straddle over a few different projects adjoining each other. So it will mean that the different builder for that particular project would have to package the separate restart application separately. That means for the works relating to one project, it will be submitted by builder one. For the EMN works relating to project number 2 will be submitted by the main contractor for project 2. I'm not sure whether Dr. Chin can add on this.
Okay, Long, yeah. Okay, for LTA particular projects, right? I mean, from BCA side, we have a dedicated officer to advise on this. Generally, the comment made by Long are the correct because for construction site, right, we are looking at this control of the site, which shall be done by the main con. So in terms of the coordination, right? So the main con have to coordinate all the subcon works, either all the supervisory works as well. So include those from the M&E works subcontractor as well. So in this case, right, I mean, if the main con has a system, right, so it can stagger the different zone for them as well as a different timing from them. So the main con is aware on all the construction works. So if you have a submission by different like specialists, M&E subcon, right? So the coordination may not be there. So this will violate the rule of this segregation or everything. So it's in terms of the construction worksite control, it should be by the main con. Yeah, I also see some of the queries on the existing depot or existing station. Yeah. So if those are existing depot or station, which is not a construction site, right? But you are using the work pass holder or the S pass, which register under construction sector to work on that or on the replacement of certain M&E thing or on the equipment thing. So submission to BCA will be required, and that will be under category of the construction account works. Yeah. So it's not under the main construction supply work. So that will be another category for that. So this has been shown clearly on our BCA website. So actually all the information are in the BCA website. Yeah. So that's for me. Yeah.
Just to add on, I think the BCA website has been revamped such that it's a one-shop front. So if you go in there, you will see all the different categories in infographics format. So it'll be easier now, just for your information.
Okay, thank you, Long. Thank you, Dr. Chin. I just want to add on that for any new information, do subscribe to our Telegram. We will actually publish all those information there as well for any changes that we have made. Especially the things are evolving. In fact, the FAQ, look at it, it does change along the way. So we are all learning from this. So the other part I want to emphasize is really on the so-called safe management measures on site. Why we think the main con needs to play a role. Because like what Dr. Chin has mentioned, it's really about coordinating the whole work site to ensure the safety of it. In fact, I think as a GP, as a project owner, can also play a part. Besides the started, I think if you can help to put in place measures to ensure that all those safety measures are being implemented, that would be good. So like what Dr. Chin has mentioned, we have aggressively all the agencies in a way together the project started safely. So application-wise, we're also and we, as possible. That is something that we are working on. So do check out who are your point of contact. If you are not sure, you can always email us. We will let you know. Okay, maybe I just move on to the next bunch of questions. I think there's a lot of anxiousness in terms of swabbing, whether it's safe to be swabbed, how can the swabbing be arranged, all those things. I just want to emphasize that the swabbing is more of an early detection. I think not just to protect the project to ensure that they can still continue, but also to protect our loved ones, which is why I think in terms of why our own inspectors also have to be swabbed. I think there's always concern about that, whether we are moving in only periodically. But I think for the safety of our loved ones, that's necessary. As in terms of the process, I'll just pass it to Abner. Are you able to answer some of these swabbing queries that they have?
Okay, hi everyone, Abner here from the Safe Workforce team. So I think I'll just answer some common swab test queries. So to clarify, right, there are now probably two groups of people. Okay, so the first group are the SCs, PRs, EPs, SPs, and WPH holders staying in HDBs, PRPs, or TLQs with less than or equals to 6 people. So for these people, right, once you have received approval by BCA to restart work, and once their access code is green for those applicable, they may start work immediately while waiting for BCA to contact you regarding the swab test arrangements. So I think earlier there was a lot of queries saying that, do we need to register for the swab test? Do we need to arrange ourselves? But the answer is no. BCA will contact you regarding the swab test for this group of workers. Okay, so for the second group of workers, right, they are the workers who are staying in dormitories. So for these workers, right, they will require MOM's clearance before they can leave the dorm. Okay, so once MOM has cleared the dormitory, BCA will take over to arrange for the regular swab test for these workers. So I think now there's two groups of workers. I hope it clarifies. Also another a common question that we have received over the last few weeks is that is the serology test a replacement for the swab test? So to give some background, the swab test is a nasal test. The serology test is a blood test. So we have checked in with our MOH colleagues, and they've informed us that the serology test is not a replacement for a swab test. It is a detection for the antibodies within an individual. Okay, the swab test is still the test that determines whether someone is COVID positive or negative. Yeah.
Okay, I think there's also a question on whether Singapore citizens need to go for swab. Basically anybody who step into the site, like what I said earlier, need to be swabbed. Abner, are you able to answer the question that, let's say, for example, an agency, let's say a project manager or director from the agency, if they have to go to multiple sites, where do they park themselves under for the swabbing itself?
So I can repeat the question again. I think I'll cut off for a moment. Sorry.
Okay, I'm saying that for some of the agency reps, right, they are actually project managing several projects. So where do they go for their swabbing? Because they will need to be swabbed periodically as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so for all these project managers or who may be working on the project site, right, they are to be registered, right, under BCA, under the visa application. To be very exact, right, the file I'm talking about is the construction supply main submission Excel file, employee details tab. All workers, right, who step into a construction site need to be included in this Excel. Okay, because when the A&I team goes down, right, to inspect your site, they will be referring to this master list. So do make sure that all workers who are in the site, whether they be stepping in for once a week or whether it be 7 days a week, right, they need to be included in the Excel sheet. So once they are included in Excel and they've been approved by BCA, our swabbing team will take this Excel sheet and schedule the swab test accordingly for all these individuals, whether they are Singaporean citizens or PR holders or EP, SP, WPH holders. Hope this clarifies.
Yeah. In fact, I just want to add on that even for all the inspectors, whether it's from BCA or MOM, we also need to be swabbed as well periodically as safety measures. Yep. So I will move on to the next set of questions. It's mainly on my project restart has been cleared.
Long here.
Hello, can you hear me?
Long here. I'd like just to add on a bit.
Yeah. Okay, Long.
back to the list of workers that Abner was saying, the contractor should, for the project, should also add in your RTOs, your QPs who are involved in the project to be complete for that duration of the 3 months. Quite often the RTO will follow through with the project. Yeah, just for information.
Okay. Okay, I'll now move on to the next part, which is on the SG work pass. I think a lot of questions are coming saying that their restart application has been cleared, but their workers cannot come out, or somehow the access code doesn't reflect that the workers can come out. Again, Abner, would you be able to answer this?
Okay, sorry. Sorry. Can you repeat the question again?
Sorry, on the SG work
Apologies.
pass, right? I think there are a lot of queries regard to workers. The restart application has been so-called cleared, approved, but
access code
somehow
is
their
red,
workers cannot come out. Yeah,
Ah.
from the
Okay.
dorms, they still reflect as red. I guess you got to go through the criteria about the 5 criteria.
Yes. Okay, so we understand that this is now one of the very common queries among contractors and GPs. So I do understand that this access code, right, involve multiple agencies, but BCA is the one who is receiving the queries right now. So when BCA, when we receive your queries, we need to liaise with a lot of agencies to collect info. So when we email them, we also need time for them to respond to us. Which is why many of you all may be facing a delays in a reply. But to give some background to answer the question on why a worker's access code may be red, right? There are a few reasons. One of the common reasons is that they're staying in a dormitory. So if they're staying in a dormitory which has not been cleared by MOM, their access code will be red. Okay. Some other reasons is that they may have gone for a swab test recently and are awaiting their results. That's another reason. Another reason is that they could be staying. So for workers who you think are staying in cleared dormitories or like cleared accommodations, do make sure that you have updated their employee details in MOM's database. So I think for work pass holders, it should be the OFWAS, and for E-Pass and S-Pass, it should be the employment pass online. So do make sure that the address indicated in those databases are where they are really staying right now. Because if they are indicating for example, they are indicated that that in MOS database that they're staying in an uncleared dormitory, when in fact they're staying in a HDB, the access code will remain red. So these are some common reasons. For more information, I think I don't go into full details. You may refer to our BCA homepage. There's an access code FAQ, and can just look through. And there's even steps to take to email us. If you have cleared if you all think that all the requirements have been met, none of them are involved, that your worker has met all the requirements, they may fill in an Excel and drop an email to Safe Workforce. But do give us some time to investigate and get back to you. It takes time. Appreciate the understanding. Thanks.
Yeah, I just want to add on that, in fact, we are quite overwhelmed by the number of response. I mean, that inquiries that have been coming in with regard to this SG work pass. We are trying our best to clear the backlog. So hopefully the FAQs can be a self-help channel for most of the queries. So we are trying to answer to all the emails, but if let's say we can't, hopefully the FAQs that are published will be able to address some of those. There was also a query with regard to the decanting from the dormitories, whether BCA could help to decant some of these workers from the dormitories. Actually, BCA is already working closely with MOM JTF to actually expedite some of this decanting of the workers. I would say that resources are tight in terms of the MOM JTF workforce as well, the joint workforce as well. So we are trying our best to help as many as possible. But please do take note that the dorm schedule clearance, right, have been published by MOM recently. So you can refer to that website to understand where your workers can come out to start work again. So in fact, I think they have published the schedule until middle of August. So by then, I think the dorms should be cleared, assuming that there's no more C+ cases within there. What they're trying to do is actually to clear block by block. But of course, we need to ensure that all the dormitories are at least within that dorm itself is cleared before we can allow the workers to come out and work. So the progressive clearance block by block, so called, as long as they are de-gazetted, I think there will be no issues of workers coming out to work. Maybe I'll just move on to the next part, which is about the safe accommodation. I think we have been receiving quite a fair bit of queries with regard to accommodation. And we have mentioned about the need for cohorting. I just want to make some clarification here with regard to cohorting. The on-site quarters, things like CTQs, your TOLQs are good. I mean, because you basically contain all your workers within a site, but it is by no means the only option. We are also looking at working with the so-called dorm operators to actually allow the cohorting at the purpose-built dorms itself. That means that workers from the same project, whether it's main con or subcons, can all be housed together within the same few levels. But that will require the main cons as well as the support from the developers to help to manage that. I think this is something that we are working on. So please don't have the false impression that CTQ or TOLQ is the only option. Okay, so there's also a question on the number of addresses that is allowed for the project restart in terms of safe accommodation. Is Sebastian online? Just want to pass it on to Sebastian to maybe clarify some of these queries that are coming in.
Yeah, check it. I'm online.
Yep. Come, Sebastian. You want to clarify about the need for us to start small?
Okay. Sure. So to let GP know, for the past few weeks, we have received applications from the main contractor and then inquiries on the limitation on the addresses, which right now I think to mitigate the risk for the project to enable a control restart, right? We actually set the address limit like 10 addresses. So basically how we actually set the 10 limit addresses is that under the application, when the main con submit, we will actually then port this data to draw the addresses from our MOM database. So from there, we will actually then screen through how many addresses that this project, the workers under this project, they are actually residing in. All right. So basically for now, if let's say it exceeded 10 addresses, we will not be able to clear the compile. So the reason we're trying to mitigate the risk that from the workers working in a project trying to minimize their accommodation so that they actually reduce the intermixing with workers from other accommodation. So this one we actually seek GP's colleague your understanding to also advise your main contractor that if possible, try to get them to cohort in a few accommodation so that then they can actually be able to project start in a safe manner. So one of the few areas that we actually have feedbacks is that some of them, they are not able to update their addresses under MOM or FAST system. So we do understand that, especially if let's say the workers are actually residing in government facility, GSF. So what we can do is that we can facilitate the clearance for the safe accommodation, which then our processing officer will reach out to your main con to really get them to submit us the list of workers that are actually staying at the SF. Yeah, so once we actually verified that, we can then actually clear the accommodation portion. So we do seek your understanding and your assistance to actually let main con and actually know that there's this requirement in place currently. So notwithstanding that, we actually aware that when the PBDs are starting to clear up, there will be actually more workers coming from different accommodation or this. So we are actually currently reviewing this. And if let's say there are any new further changes update, it will actually be reflected in the FAQ. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Sebastian. I just want to emphasize that we are trying to move fast and start small, just to ensure the safety of the site itself. Of course, the rules we are reviewing the rules progressively. So in terms of the number of accommodation, I think it will be the new norm. We can't expect each application or each project to have 100 over addresses where all our workers will be actually residing at all the different places, because that increases the touch points and increases the risk of a pandemic spread. So, I mean, for the sake of a project, I think there's a need for us to move towards as few addresses as possible So this is the end state that we will be moving towards in the longer term. So there are questions on whether we will review the tenant accommodation addresses. We will. It's works in progress. Just bear with us because we are all learning along the way. And what we don't want to see is once we restarted, there's another pandemic that breaks out, which resulted in us having to stop works because of a C+ case. Moving on, there is some queries on the, let me see. Just hang on a minute. I think there's one question from Divya that talks about during the site approved projects, BCA site audit team suggested to keep the size of workforce per zone to less than 20 workers per group. May I check whether can we deploy, say, for example, 5 group of workers of different trades, civil, archi, system-wide contractors, all working on the same zone with each 10 to 20 workers? Jeremy, would you be able to answer this? Or maybe Long?
Okay, yes and no. Answer to that is no. Okay, essentially, what we would want for this zoning is that there will be a team of workers. So if this team of workers are actually essentially doing the same thing, like for instance, concreting works, you have the bar benders, you have the concreters, you have the carpenters and form work people all together. Okay, and this would actually be deemed as one team. Okay, but I think the question that was actually being asked was that these are actually people, these are actually from different trades. So if these are people from different trades and they will not actually fall within this definition of one team. So it all depends on how you look at this. Yeah.
I just want to emphasize that I think, anybody else want to answer? Long, you want to add on, is that?
Okay, the workers, like what Jeremy has said, it must be one team. But for example, if let's say the RTO wants to do inspection, right, which is not part of the team, which should not be, it should be, as far as possible, it should be done remotely. Basically, he should not come into contact with the workers, when he's doing the inspection. It could be staggered by time. That's one possibility. Or using some technology to do it, not within close contact with the workers. Thank you.
Yeah, so
Okay,
I just want to
add on.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, for the inspectors, right? When the inspector, if say using the video, all this is not possible, right? The inspector has to go down to the site to inspect, right? So during inspection, right, those workers shall be not doing the work at the site. So that this zone now become the inspector zone. So inspector should inspect and record whatever via the photos or whatever, and then comment via the paperwork or via the WhatsApp or via any other video conferences later. So that when any rectification, right, the workers will go back and work at the zone where the inspector will left the site. Yeah. So in this case, right, there's no mixing between workers and the inspector. So with this, right, I mean each team or each cell bubble, so it won't have a cross infection, yeah, of course. So this is the desirable outcome.
Okay, I just want to emphasize that I think whatever that we have been practicing pre-COVID will no longer be valid now. We are moving to a new norm itself. So it's really, we really need to make use of technology to overcome some of these things, as well as we probably have to expect some slowdown in the productivity as a result of us having to segregate. But it's better to be safe than sorry. So, okay, I realize that it's already past 12. Are there any queries? Anybody raise their hands on any queries that they have? I just want to leave this last 3 minutes or so for any open queries, any live questions that you all have.
Chairman, there's one raised hand.
Yeah.
Chen Li.
Yeah. Can you help me read out the question, please?
Hi, sorry. Just want to quickly ask about the physical logbook as an additional system, because previously we understand that we need an electronic system, but then so physical logbook is acceptable, is it?
This is with regard to what the other records you need to keep on site, right?
The checklist on additional system in addition to safe entry.
I see. Jeremy, would you be able to take this question?
I think I'll take this one. I think it's in
Okay.
the declaration form. Besides the safe entry NRIC, there's also a requirement to have some kind of recording system on the visitors going in. So previously, yes, we did put the word electronic, but I think we have relaxed it. So if you have some form of a recording system, whether it's a logbook, I think it would be acceptable. But let me see whether Vivian got anything to add. Vivian, are you online?
Yes, Vivian here. Okay, to reply to your question, right? What we wrote actually is a system. The electronic system, I think you're referring to the other one. The electronic system is on the daily records to be submitted from the builder to BCA. So there are two things you're talking about. The one that you mentioned on the physical logbook acceptable, that one we only mentioned that in addition to safe entry, you must have this physical logbook, or it can be like visitor management system that you have. The reason being because the safe entry records wouldn't be released to the builders. So the builders wouldn't know who are the visitors in and out of the worksite. So which is why we asked for additional system.
Yes, I think what Vivian says is correct. It's a system that we're looking at.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next in line we have Chun Long Lee.
Yeah, hi. So I just want to check a quick thing on the construction account works. Do they have to have the safe entry NRIC? Hi.
I'll try to answer this. I think you are asking whether if you have some works which comes under construction accounts work, whether you need to have this requirement of the safe entry NRI system. Is my understanding correct?
Yeah, that's right. Because the email coming back only write safe entry without any QR behind NRIC. So just want to clarify.
I think the requirement for safe entry NRIC is a basic requirement, I think, for all workplaces. But for construction sector, we require the NRIC version. Vivian, can you correct me if I'm wrong?
Yeah, that's correct. The reason being that because it's not compatible with the access code.
Yeah, that I understand. I see for construction account work.
Yeah. So it's the same because the MOM safe. I think they have a work pass system, so it's only compatible with the NRIC version. So for construction account workers, right, as long as they are construction account workers, they will need to use the NRIC version in order to be compatible. So to check whether are they green, gray, or red.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next we have Winning Tears.
Hello, can I just ask for the construction account that has RERTO deployed by a third party as consultant, how they arrange for the swap test, because the main contractor would not include them in their submission.
As I know, right, I mean the RERTO has to be included in the main submission by the builder. Yeah, the supervisory staff include the QPS, all this has to be included.
It's mainly for the construction works. Do you require them to submit RERTO? The construction account so far, they submit. So far, I see the contractor submit without the RERTO. So which means they have to make the submission for them, is it? Or can the RERTO company make themselves?
Hi, Long here. I just want to get some clarity. When we say construction projects, we will mean that the project had actually some plans approval from BCA. BCA did issue them a permit, and the RTOs are listed in the permit.
The one that I mentioned is not. Don't have a BCA project reference
so
number.
it's basically some maintenance work like road works which does not require approval from BCA or insignificant building works, correct?
Yes.
So that is not considered as a construction site per se. So they only need to meet the safe workforce and the safe ACOMS plus transport requirement.
Correct, but they happen to have RERTO to supervise the works. So the question is how to arrange this RERTO to go for swab tests when the contractor don't make the submission, don't include them in their submission to restart.
Okay, Vivian, I'm not sure whether you can answer this or somebody else. Sorry.
Yeah, actually for your case, right, because the RERTO is not really required, but you have it. So when you come in under construction account works, the contractor should actually include in the RERTO in their application as well. So if that is not done, right, another way is that the QP, because for every RERTO, there's still a QP who is appointing them, right? So the QP should register under the firm, right? All the site personnel, like their site supervision staff, in firm level under essential site activities.
Which is because they're not under construction sector, if I'm not wrong. So they just need to have a clearance by MTI, right? This one?
They're not under construction sector. So as in like the RERTO.
Sorry, what I mean is the, let me check about the construction sector part. But
because,
okay, but for the firm itself, they need to apply under to BCA under essential also.
Okay, no. First, we need to establish first. If the site personnel that you're saying, they don't. First thing, they do not work in construction site. For us, right, BCA require anyone who work in a construction site to apply into BCA. That's the first principle.
Okay.
The second thing is, if they do not work in construction site, are they construction account workers? Meaning that, are they in the MTI SSIC 41 to 43 code? If they are not, right, then actually they do not come into BCA. They will go into MTI.
Okay, thanks.
Because yours seems to be do not belong to the category. So unless they enter a construction site, then whether are they under this SSIC code 41 to 43, they will still have to apply the BCA.
Under their own firm, is it? Instead of under the main contractor?
No, it will be firm level. MTI's approval is always on firm level.
Anyway, I think you can go to our website. There's a self-check, and you can then assess on what you need to be what needs to be done. Because actually now we have revamped our website as well. So do take a look at it. I think the answers will be clearer because it's a step-by-step guide. As you click on it, you will know what needs to be done. Yeah, I think we probably have time for one more question. I can see that the number of participants now signing out is getting more and more. I think everybody wants to go for their lunch. I think let's just take one more question.
Okay, one last question from Neo Kong Leong.
Can you unmute and let us have your question, please?
Can you hear me?
You need to speak a bit louder.
Can you hear me? Is it okay?
I think a bit louder, please. Yeah, not loud enough.
You still sound it? Wait, I try to.
You sound a bit distant.
Is it okay now? Is it okay now?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. Actually, in fact, I have two questions. First question is, just now, I think your colleague was saying that when main contractors submit the list, they should include everybody, including people like manager that he may be visiting various sites. I mean, for ours, we like LTA, means that this manager will have to be registered under the same list for the various sites, because if he happens to visit for various sites. But however, I understand from our POIC, they say that LTA staff should be excluded from this submission. So we are a bit confused whether to include or exclude, because you say that LTA staff will be being arranged to carry out a separate swab test for this case. That is for number one question. Okay, number two question is that you all say that a foreigner can actually proceed with the work while waiting for the swab test. So this group of foreign workers, does that mean that they are referring to those that are not housing within dormitory? That means they may be staying in HDB or condo. Is it that group of people? Because your colleague also say that if let's say waiting for sub-test, meaning that their pass will be in red, right? So how can they actually proceed with work? That's all for my two questions.
Abner, would you be
I think,
able to
yeah,
answer them?
I think I'll take both of these questions. So firstly, right, maybe, okay, so separately, maybe after this conversation, you can just drop me an email regarding the information you receive from this POC, because from what we know, right, any individual who will be stepping into the project site will need to be registered with BCA in the restart application. Okay, so that's the first thing. We are very clear about that. As long as they can come in for one day only, they'll still need to be registered. Okay, so that will include LTA staff who will be working on the project site. That's the first question. Okay, so for the second question, right? So when I said, right, that workers may restart work while waiting for the swab test, right, I was referring, remember, to the first group of workers, not the second group. So to be very clear, right, if your work pass holders or S-Pass, right, they are staying in a HDB or PRP or TLQ with less than or equals to 6 people, if they receive approval from BCA, yes, they can start work while waiting for a swab test. But if the workers are staying in dormitories which have not been cleared by MOM, they cannot start work. Okay, so I thought be very clear on that.
I just want to clarify on the second point. Is more because the incidence of C+ cases at the dormitories are higher compared to those that are staying in the HDB PRP. That's why I think we have different risk assessment as well as different approaches in handling the start work for this group of workers. Okay, so does that answer your question?
Still not really. So like I said, this group of people is actually not in the dormitory while waiting for test. They can start lah. Am I correct? So even though they are worker, can be HDB, can be condo, not in
So
dormitory.
this group of workers, they are staying. It's based on their place of residence.
Correct.
Which
It could be staying in condo, for example.
Yep.
Yes.
Or registered HDB. So does that mean that they can start while waiting for the test? They don't belong to the dormitory group lah, because dormitory you say that you need MOM. That one is definite. That one no
yes
about that. But this group, other group, they are not staying in dormitory.
Yes. So once they have received BCA's approval, and their access code should be green, they can start work. Yeah.
Oh, is that so? They will definitely get green. Oh,
yeah.
Yes, if they are registered as a HDB or PRP under MOM's database, right, usually their access code shouldn't give issues. Should be green.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we have come to the end of our Q&A session. I have to close this. We have received quite a fair bit of questions. We'll try our best to answer all of them separately. We'll compile them, and then we will share with everyone on the Q&A. So I just want to thank everyone for attending this clinic as well, or what we call webinar itself. And I also like to thank the panelists for answering all the questions. And with that, I just hope that everybody will stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you for attending our webinar. Over to you, MC.
Thank you. Thank you, webinar chairperson, panelists, and speakers for the valuable insights about the good practices on project restart application. It has been an engaging and fruitful session. We've come to the end of this session. After exiting this webinar, you'll be directed to access an evaluation form for today's session. The presentation materials will be made available at a later date. Also, we are pleased to share that BCA is now on Telegram, and you may wish to subscribe it to find out the latest update and information on the built environment sector. On this note, we thank you for your participation and making this clinic a success. We wish you a smooth and safe restart. Signing off, this is Hui Wen from BCA.